Alright guys, UFC 251 is ahead of us. Fight Island has been made ready, and we're set for another epic card. While it's unfortunate that the welterweight championship main event between Kamaru Usman and Gilbert Burns became another victim of the pandemic, we still have 2 championship fights and 1 title eliminator scheduled that are all bound to be entertaining. What do you think about the card?
I love it. Love it. Good lineup, some good fights. Fight Island's ready because of this guy. I'm all for it, Eric. I'm looking forward to this night. You're going to see the fruits of my labor, ladies and gentlemen. Fruits of my labor.
Starting with the second fight of the card, we have the former women's strawweight champ, Rose Namajunas, looking to avenge the biggest loss of her career and earn a chance to reclaim the title against Zhang Weili by taking on the woman who dethroned her back at UFC 237, Jessica Andrade.
Now, the biggest loss in her career is when she dumped this guy and got with stupid Pat Barry. That was the biggest loss in her career. I can tell you that right now, Eric. She's going to regret that day.
When these two ladies first met up, Rose seemed to have the advantage in every aspect of the fight, using her height and range to keep Andrade at bay with her jabs and straight punches, and using her footwork to avoid Andrade's pressure. However, she would make a big mistake by overcommitting to the Kimura attempts to avoid Andrade's takedowns and disregarding Andrade's straight, with Andrade eventually slamming Rose's exposed head on the canvas and earning herself a vicious KO victory. While Rose has not fought since this loss, Andrade eventually lost the championship in her next fight against Zhang Weili by TKO after completely disregarding Zhang's striking ability and trying to pressure her way into the pocket for her usual swarming attacks. The way Andrade performed in that fight leads me to believe that not much will change in her rematch against Rose, except for the outcome. While Andrade isn't a bad striker by any means, she's always relied on her brute strength and durability to win her fights rather than technique, and I'm not sure that she can fight any other way. Again, she was losing her fight against Rose, with Rose lining her up on the feet and nullifying Andrade's pressure with her long range. In this rematch, I see Rose employing the same game plan, only this time, I don't think she'll follow Andrade to the fence and give her any space to grab hold of her to look for the takedowns. Just about every advantage that Andrade had in that fight was granted to her by Rose's mistakes, and I don't see Rose making those same mistakes this time around. Andrade's range is too short, and her lateral movement won't get her into the pocket with Rose. But if there's one thing that she can change in this rematch, it's that she needs to use the leg kicks more in order to stifle Rose's movement and keep her stationary. Andrade had some success with the leg kicks, but she didn't stick to it. If she can batter Rose's legs and stop her movement, she'll have a much easier time getting past Rose's reach and landing her hooks on the inside, and she might even have an easier time taking her down. But I ultimately see Rose being too mobile and too precise with the boxing for Andrade to deal with. In the end, I see Rose earning a decision win and earning herself another chance to reclaim her former glory in another title fight. Now, one big factor going into this fight that not a lot of people are talking about is this fight is going to be a 3-rounder rather than the 5-rounder that they had in their first fight. How big of a factor do you think that's going to play? Because what I'm thinking may happen is Andrade will have trained for 3 rounds and will be more inclined to push the pressure right away. And how will Rose deal with it?
Yeah, it's going to play a huge factor. I mean, yeah, I see her putting the pressure on, but Rose's footwork is too damn good. I don't see it being an issue for too long. It might stifle her for a little bit, but Rose's footwork is just too damn good. Her jab is excellent. She'll be able to keep her at bay. I don't see it being too much of an issue.
Yeah, this might be a little more high-paced of a fight than the first go-around, but ultimately I see the same thing happening. Another thing that people question about Rose is her mental state. A lot of people chalked up her first loss to not completely being mentally there, dealing with anxiety or dealing with the pressure, whatever it is. Do you think that was the case in the first fight? And do you think, if she has any of those mental issues, is she going to carry that over into this one?
No, it wasn't a mental issue. She was heartbroken. Even though she did the breaking up, she didn't want it. She didn't want to break it with me. Well, you can blame me for that loss. It was because of me, nothing else. Nothing on Rose's part. She was fighting with a broken heart. So let's cut her some slack, all right, folks?
I will say that I don't agree that it was her mental state that got her that loss. It was just a technical error. Again, she overcommitted to that Kimura, and it cost her. I will say that she can't keep making those same technical mistakes if she wants to stay dominant at the top of the division. But, I think a lot of people underestimate her mental toughness. She's more open and more vocal about her issues, but she proves time and time again that she has the mental toughness to deal with it all. So I just don't think people are giving her enough credit. Anything to add to that?
Yeah, Rose, baby, if you're listening, my door is always open. I'm never shutting it on you, all right?
Next, we have our first championship fight of the night with the former featherweight champion and one of the all-time MMA greats, in Jose Aldo, looking to become one of the few multi-division champs in UFC history by winning the vacant Bantamweight championship against the rightful #1 contender and absolute killer in Petr Yan. Aldo shocked many fans at UFC 245 with his move into the Bantamweight division, appearing to still have a sharp competitive edge despite the massive weight cut he took, on top of the long, hard career as a champion that he previously had. Though he did lose a close decision to Marlon Moraes,
who was a beast,
he was still put right into the title picture at the request of the now retired Henry Cejudo, as well as the many fans who thought he had actually won that fight. Petr Yan has been on an absolute tear since entering the UFC, earning himself a 9-fight winning streak and looking more and more sharp and dangerous with each fight. After dispatching another MMA legend in Uriah Faber, and with Henry Cejudo's exit from the sport, Yan will now finally get his chance to prove his dominance by earning the belt against one of the best to ever do it. Looking at the fight itself, Aldo may come into this fight with a noticeable size advantage over Yan, just as he did against Moraes, considering how much weight he's cutting. But unlike Moraes, I don't see Yan backing away from Aldo and striking from the outside like Moraes did. Yan is a pressure fighter with fluid and precise hands, and his power earns him his opponent's respect. Aldo has always had some of the best boxing in MMA himself, as well as a great overall striking game, but he appeared to have lost some of his speed and power in this new weight class despite his sharp technique. He will have a reach advantage over Yan, and if he utilizes his notorious leg kicks in this fight like he used to in his prime, he may be able to stop Yan's pressure and keep Yan at his range. But at this stage of his career, he doesn't appear to be able to put all of the aspects of his game together like he used to, and I'm sure the weight cut isn't helping. I ultimately see Petr Yan being able to keep Aldo on the defensive side of the fight with pressure, fluid boxing, and power that will earn Aldo's respect. Again, Yan will have the shorter reach, and he has shown to be hittable. Aldo's power should never be disregarded, even in his current form, but his counter-striking ability has seemed to have been on the decline in his most recent fights, and that's something he'll need against the much younger and fresher Petr Yan. I ultimately see Yan's youth and power being too much for the battle-torn veteran in Jose Aldo to handle, with Yan earning a TKO victory, possibly in the 3rd round. But that being said, I could easily see the fight going the other way with Aldo catching Yan and following up with a TKO, as Aldo still has that killer instinct even at this stage of his career. Despite both men being excellent on the ground, Aldo has some of the best takedown defense in all of MMA, and with his already limited stamina being compromised by the big weight cut, I doubt he'll try to force the fight to the ground no matter what happens on the feet. We could be in for a hard-fought war that goes into the later rounds, and if that happens, I see the fresher fighter in Yan possibly having even more of an advantage. Regardless of what happens, I see this fight being highly entertaining. Now, going back to Jose Aldo. Again, he's older at this stage of his career. He's been through a lot of wars. He's been through a lot of championship fights. And he's cutting more weight than he ever has before. How long can he keep this up? And though it didn't seem to affect him in the Marlon Moraes fight, do you think it'll affect him here?
No. I think he has a good team. He actually hired a nutritionist. With this nutritionist, he shouldn't have any issues.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out, because in that first fight, though he did look good, I don't know if he could have looked better because he was trying to get used to the weight.
He was nervous. He never fought at that weight. He was nervous, Eric. Little pre-show jitters.
Or it could go the other way. You know, I don't know how long he can keep going at this rate. Again, he's been through a ton of wars. He's only getting older.
Oh, obviously, he's not getting younger. What world do you think we live in, Eric?
That's what leading me towards Yan winning. But again, I would never count Jose Aldo out. He's a much more experienced fighter. He's been through it all.
Oh, so what you're saying is you're counting him out, you're a damn fool. That's what you're saying.
Exactly.
Okay, got it.
Now, one interesting fact about this fight is that Petr Yan had trained previously with Jose Aldo. And, you know, the word is that Jose Aldo tore him up in sparring. Do you think people are putting too much into that? You know, because that was a long time ago, and, you know, a lot has changed since then. That being said, how much of a factor is that going to play with Yan in his head?
He knows what kind of fighter he is. He knows what he's bringing to the table. He's a younger fighter. I think confidence is through the roof with this guy. People on the media just trying to bring that stuff up, I guess, for sway the betting odds, but I don't think it's going to be a huge factor.
Now, lastly, we have the newly crowned featherweight champion, Alexander Volanovski, looking to solidify his status as the king of the division in a rematch with the former champ and one of the greatest featherweights of all time, Max Holloway.
Bless Express, baby.
Max Holloway looked to be well on his way to becoming one of the greatest mixed martial artists of all time. and surpassing Jose Aldo as the most dominant featherweight of all time. However, he would run into Alexander Volanovski at UFC 245, with Volanovski pulling off the biggest upset of that year. In their fight, Volanovski was able to stop Max's usual forward pressure by constantly hitting him with calf kicks and darting in and out of the pocket with strikes, forcing Max to switch his stance throughout the fight and never allowing him to find his range and get into his rhythm. Alex kept his pace for the entire duration of the fight, completely nullifying Max's game and earning a decision win. Unfortunately for Max, I think Volanovski's game plan in this fight was flawless, and I honestly don't know what changes Max can make in his style to adapt in this rematch. While not as powerful, I believe Max is much better with his hands than Volanovski, but he won't be able to put combinations together if he can't get in close, and despite his height, he has a short wingspan, making it extra hard for him to land jabs and establish any kind of distance in this fight. Also, Max's heavy boxing style keeps his lead leg exposed to Volanovski's calf kicks, and if he's forced to constantly switch his stance, he won't be able to get any kind of meaningful offense going. While Max is an excellent grappler, Volanovski's wrestling is on point, and his ground and pound is vicious, so Max will not want to take this fight to the canvas. In my opinion, Max will need to use more footwork and try to cut angles to find his way into striking range with Volanovski, as well as looking to counter Volanovski's calf kicks with strikes up top. But as far as that is from Max's usual style, and as successful as Volanovski was at avoiding and countering Max's offense, Volanovski's first performance against Max was a technical masterpiece in my opinion, and it's just too hard for me to see it playing out any differently in this rematch. So overall, I see Volanovski getting another decision win over Max Holloway. Now, do you think I'm underestimating Max Holloway in this fight?
Absolutely not. No, I thought the same thing. I don't see Max doing anything different. He's a scrapper. He likes to go out there and fight. He's a true warrior. Unfortunately, I don't think he's going to win this one. I'm picking Volanovski as well.
Yeah, I can't speak enough to how great of a fighter I think Max Holloway is. I mean, like I said, he had one of the most dominant runs in the featherweight division, right next to Jose Aldo. But I just think, stylistically speaking, Volanovski has his number. And like I said, it's just too hard for me to see it going any other way. Of course, Max could completely prove me wrong and do something different, which wouldn't surprise me at all. But, I'm just real interested to see what his game plan going into this one is. Alright guys, despite our predictions, we all know by now that this is the most unpredictable sport on the planet. And with the importance that each of these fights hold in their respective divisions, this event is bound to be a memorable one. With all the uncertainty in the world today, let's make sure to appreciate the entertainment that these fighters are bringing to us, because we all know by now that we can't take anything for granted in these times. We all thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.
There's just a new fuel, I've got this fire and motivation, and I've got to put him away. I think this is what needs to happen for me. I really want to prove myself, and I know a lot of people think he can't be finished, and I'm going to prove him wrong. And again, I don't want to leave any doubt in anyone's mind. I want everyone to know that, oh wow, this he's no joke. Let's jump on board.